Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K?
I'm doing great. I'm in out of the heat. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. You know, July is just like such a good summer month.
Yes, it is.
Yes, where you just spend time with family and friends. And as I get older now, you know, the one thing that I'm missing, it's children, because I don't have any children right now.
Yeah, and I technically don't have any children because I just have teens as of the 9th and young adults.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. But as you're talking about with teens, I mean, that is our topic today, these preteens. Yes. And we have a specialist, Marcus Higgs, that's going to come and talk about that bond in that relationship when your kid starts to develop those hormones. And yes, and become a preteen.
Such a necessary discussion right now, especially like you said, in the summer, I don't mind. So this is a great topic.
Yeah, definitely. And it keeps us on our toes and all that. So, which is I'm so excited about to have. But before we get into our topic for the day, we're going to talk a little bit. Every month we do a charity of the month. And the charity that we have today, it's called Caring Across Generation, which is a charity that really looks at all generations and as caregivers, you know, where we are taking care of young people, such as our family, our kids, our teenagers, but also people with disabilities and also people that are our parents in our elderly community.
That is good. It gets the whole gamut of folks.
Yes, definitely. So if you're thinking about, hey, I need some help or you want to donate, caringacross.org is a wonderful organization to donate to. But before we get into, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about preteens. You know, when I think about preteens, I get excited.
Yeah, because it's almost like this blank canvas that we can either brush it with these beautiful light strokes and then hand the brush over, or we just hand them the brush and let them figure it out. So this is the perfect age to start talking about real stuff. So yeah, preteens are very delicate, fragile. And like I said, this is such an important topic.
Yeah, because I think about it as myself as a preteen. It's really that topic of just trying to figure out who am I as a person.
Oh yeah, preteen for me was, I'm glad social media is new. Let's just say that.
Yeah. And one of the things that I learned in my preteen, and I remember this must have been around 8th grade or somewhere around there, or the summer to 8th or 9th. I used to struggle with I went to an all Caucasian school. For one thing, okay. So being the only person of color, and I used to try to figure out what I was trying to do. I had these negative thoughts, and I must have said something about myself. You know, like, Mom, you know, I'm not this because of everyone else. And I remember my parents are from Jamaica. My mom is. How she just really put into me how you got to be never say anything negative about yourself. I mean. This woman lost her own mind stating that to me. She's like, I don't want any child talking about herself ever. You know, and she put that in my head, which as I look back now as a therapist, that was so powerful at that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And now we have an expert coming on to talk to parents because a lot of parents are like, I don't know what to do. with all the
Yeah.
media, social media about my teens. So we're going to take a commercial break, and then we're going to bring back the expert Marcus. We'll be back in a moment.
A must-have for parents to be, first-time parents, empty nesters, and parents all around. There are infinite ways to parent a child, but the trick is trying to figure out the best way that fits you and your child. Create strong connections during pregnancy, to not pulling your hair out during the terrible twos, navigating puberty, and having adult conversations with your adult children. The Intimacy of Parenthood covers it all, and it is now on Amazon, available in Kindle, Audible, and paperback.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy Show, where intimacy is real. Yes, Marcus Higgs. Yes, welcome to the show.
Dr. April, it's wonderful to be here. Hey, Coach K.
Hey, Marcus.
Yes, so Marcus is really what we call a communication coach that helps
Sure,
parents and preteens, I guess, communicate effectively. And you specialize in those preteens who are between 10 and 14 years old.
Yes, I work with the parents and I work with their communication to their preteens.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. And you have a background as a teacher. Yeah. And you've been in a variety of countries as a teacher and a mentor, which is wonderful. And you have a book out called Community, Putting Parents' Books into Action.
Yes. I was running a community where we would actually put the parenting books into action, because all philosophy ends in action. So we're just taking ideas and saying, what can we do with this?
Good. So as we ask all our guests who come on the show, what their definition of intimacy is and how that relates to what we're talking about today.
What's funny is organically, I was answering a question right before we were recording. But I'm a lover of words, and I love the root of words, etymology. And I know intimacy means to know. And some people say, into me I see. But yeah, to know. And I'm a lover of philosophy, and we know from the Delphi or Western philosophy, and it says, know thyself and you'll understand the secrets of gods and men. Intimacy means exposing yourself fully, completely. If you bring in Carl Jung, exposing our shadow selves, all of us to be integrated, to be accepted, because we're born whole. And then we put stories on top of that. So that's what intimacy means to me. It means to know someone fully, to know yourself fully, and to be accepting of it all.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And so to know, how did that tie into your specialty work with preteens?
Sure. Yeah. Preteens, beautiful age. Every time we go through a transition in life, we gain a new understanding of ourselves. The whole thing about life is figuring out who you are. And every time I say, everything that eventually goes must first break. And in each instance, life is asking you, who are you? Preteens say, I'm not a child. And then life asks you, no, who are you? And then you say, oh, no, I'm not like them. They're not like us. And then life asks you, says, who are you? I'm not asking what you're not. Like, who are you? And then you eventually say, I am. Boom. The reason it deals with preteens is because this is the first identity breaking. This is the first time they're really asking that question. Gabor Mate wrote the book, Hold Your Child Close. They're dependent on you. Your worldview has been their gospel. I call that maternal energy. It's nurturing. They're soothed, they're seen, they're secure, they're safe. This paternal energy pushes them away. And it still says you're seen, you're soothed, you're safe, but I need you to be independent. And it's in that tension that they form into a holistic adult so that they can be interdependent up here. Because independence is not the final form. They need to come back and serve. That's how community grows. So what does it mean at this stage? They need to know who they are in this transition to deal with this transition.
Yeah, I was just thinking, even when my daughter was a preteen, like she's in a grown adult, but she told me when she was going through that stage, she felt like something just came into her body, which is these hormones. Yeah. And just pushed her where she felt like she just didn't know me, like me, just didn't want to have anything to deal with me. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And as a parent, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating on two ends. Yes, as a parent, when you don't know what the script is, you don't know what the story is. It's frustrating as a teenager also.
Right.
One thing that you learn, and now teenagers aren't addicts, but one thing you learn when you study them, a lot of the lashing out, they don't necessarily want to do it, but they understand how they're being viewed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a cycle, or it's downward spiral. There's a beautiful book by Ellen Galansky called The Breakthrough Years.
Okay.
There's a dump of hormones at this time, yeah? So their
Mhm.
highs feel high and their lows feel low.
That's right.
Like they're more sensitive. And the reason that is so that they can gauge more of the world. When I say gauge, like Inside Out. Yeah, it's very much.
Yeah.
Sorry. Can the
Yes.
audience see that or can only us?
Yes.
That's all right. That's all right. Just like Inside Out, beautiful movie. The second one just came out. But they're more sensitive to the world so that they can gain more information. That's why if you look at a person, the teenage years is where all those classics are. You can go back to the music of your teenage years and those always hit.
Yes.
But when you know the reason for this, you can help to start to understand not how to mitigate it, but how to direct it, how to lead it, how to cultivate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in the sense of dynamics, if there is a mom out there listening, and maybe she's having that conflict with her daughter, I'll just start with mom and daughter conflicts.
Sure.
Yeah. Where they're just at each other.
This goes for teenagers too, Coach K. So
Yes. What advice do you or suggestions do you give to the mom who feels like, I'm trying to talk to my child and they're not listening, or they're not doing anything I'm asking them to do, and they get so frustrated? Maybe also the child just cries all the time or just shuts down. It's that mother and daughter.
What I would do first is I would listen, because I believe there's wisdom. You have wisdom in your situation.
Right.
Like, you know it better than me. And so I never give advice unless I'm asked. And they did ask me, but first thing, I'd listen. I would recommend a book that's a longer conversation after Lisa Dumont, Untangled.
Okay.
That's understanding girls in the 7 stages they will go through during the stage.
Okay. Awesome. Untangled is the name of the book?
Untangled, correct.
Okay.
Lisa Dumont is the author. She also helped in writing Inside Out too. Not helped with that, but she was an advisor.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And then I work with parents, and only directly with parents. I was in the classroom for a decade and a half, but I decided to come out. Mr. Rogers said, if you want to help the kids, support the parents.
Right.
I would let her, easier said than done, I would say, don't take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 P's of positive psychology. It's not personal. It's not permanent.
Okay.
And it's not pervasive. It's not in all things.
Okay.
In this moment, yeah, she was feeling dysregulated. She's directing it at you because you're probably the closest thing to her outside of herself. Right. And every protagonist needs an antagonist. Right. Doesn't mean enemy. It just means somebody who's against them. And oftentimes, why are you stifling me? That's the thought. Right? Even if you're not. Then there are communication strategies and tactics we can take to help them open up.
Okay.
But the high level strategy is being a trustworthy present parent, because trust is built over time.
Right.
And trust has three prongs, or 3 elements. 1, you have to speak the truth. All growth comes from the truth. Even though they may not see it as a truth, but you have to be understanding this is what objectively is what I see as a truth. 2, it has to make sense to them.
Right.
In their understanding. Even if they don't agree with it, it has to make sense to them. And the 3rd is they have to see you care.
Right.
Well-being. So if I know that you care for me and that you're speaking the truth and it makes sense to me, I might be against it, but over time, as you keep showing up, I trust you. Even when I go off, I know that there's a safe space to come back to of trust. There's an extension of that thought, but I'll stop now.
Okay.
That,
Yeah.
that trust that
Pardon?
you talk about is so huge. And I think as parents, sometimes we don't pay attention to the things that we miss. Like when we say, hey, when I get home, I'm going to help you fix the bike. So we get home and we're tired, or it just slips our mind and we go and do something else. The whole day goes on. Child's not going to say but so much. So 3 months down the line, you know what? When I go to the grocery store, I'm going to pick you up some chips. We go to the grocery store, we forget the chips. Like those tiny little things are the pieces of trust that chips away that we as parents don't think about. So then when we look at our child in the situation, it's like, why don't you trust me? You need to listen to what I say. And it's like, well, you can't hold your word with the little things that matter to the little ones. So why should I trust you as I grow up to advise me on X, Y, and Z? So I'm glad you spoke about that trust piece, but I also wanted to just speak about how minuscule the trust that a child sees and what matters to them is.
I'm glad you brought that up, Coach K, because that's when I said there's an extension of that thought. Because I can promise you, I promise you, I said it 3 times, so it must be true. I promise you, the trust will be broken. Now that's heavy, right?
Right.
I said earlier, everything that eventually grows must first break.
Right.
I believe this is my own belief system and all of what I've studied, but that's a feature, not a bug, of human development. Because when you break the trust, you ask yourself, is this the type of person I want to be? That's the same question I ask kids and students. Is this the person you want to be? If it's not, you make it right, or you own it, you admit it, you tell the truth. All growth starts with the truth. You admit it, you make it right, and then you change your identity going forward. But when you break that trust, if you repair it and mend it, you're communicating I care. And again, we get back on the horse. I mean, we've broken trust with ourselves. We've had intimate partners break trust with us, and it's a hard thing. I understand. This is a part of human development and growth, I think.
Right.
Easier said than done. I know. But for the relationships we care about, we make it and we mend it.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of what Coach K says, I know sometimes parents think when they're preteens and teenagers to back off, and not get involved. But no, that's when you really need to. I mean, I got more involved. That's when you really need to get involved. You need to show up. And then also piggyback on what you guys said. When you make mistakes, and I made mistakes, it's okay to apologize to your kids and say, hey, I'm sorry. I mean, that takes a big show that, hey, my parent can say that they're sorry. Right. You can't do that. So I think that's a huge aspect.
Along with that, Dr. April. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I'm saying yes.
Okay. Yeah. When you show them that adults are fallible, it also helps them to be forgiving to themselves. And that's where self-confidence comes from. I believe in myself to be who I am. And then when I fall short, I know that I can show up for myself.
Right. So my next question, I was thinking, because there was the pandemic in the sense of the Black male preteen. Yeah.
The pandemic of the Black male? Hold on. That means the problem of the Black male. But hold on, there's another problem.
But I meant that there's a lack of parents developing strong Black men.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Our parents are even, I'm not even blaming the parents, it's even society, and it starts in that, of course, it starts at elementary, but all that. But there's a lot of work that can be done in this preteen stage. So for people out there listening, maybe there's a mom who's struggling with her son who feels like, I'm starting to be a man and I'm the only man in this house and the responsibility of that, or even the father and son conflict. Yeah. Can you speak about that? Yeah.
Yeah. The work that I do, it's a startup framework.
Right.
It starts with a strong identity.
Right.
And in that strong identity, I speak of two things, virtue and values. Virtues are the 24 characteristic traits that are with all humans, all religions, all cultures, all beliefs and faiths. They're easy to talk about: creativity, courage, leadership, and so on. Basically, they work to the well-being of people, and they work towards the well-being of oneself. Values is what's important to the person.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have different values. And that's just that's what makes us unique. The reason I started off with virtues and values is because we are the stories we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, society will hold a disempowering story of you until you tell them otherwise. And that's one of the challenges of growing up. I can speak as a Black man of entering spaces where people have already pegged you with something before you've opened your mouth.
Right.
It's just like, well, I'm not like that. Why are you treating me that way? And it's not the whole thing of doubting myself, but it's, why are you being mean to me? But I know who I am on the inside. And mind you, that happens over time. I remember that I was speaking to this podcaster. He said, it's cool that you can speak about these, what do you say, challenging conversations or conversations that people avoid. And I thought in my head, when he said that, I was just like, it's because I couldn't avoid them because people would bring them to me.
Mm-hmm.
People might use the word microaggression. I mean, whatever word you use, and I mean, know your audience. I mean, all of us have probably experienced cases of this, but I say I'm stress progressive. Those little stressors are reaffirming of who I am and my identity, I feel. That's just the way I've alchemized it. And that's why we have to live with integrity of knowing yourself. So I would encourage that mother, encourage that father. I love working with diverse families just because my mom's Filipino, my dad's Bahamian, they grew up in the developing world. I grew up in America and the Bahamas, but I don't know. Identity is a strong thing. Anybody, I work with any and everybody, and bring your own beliefs. Like I don't work with a particular faith. Like, believe what you want to believe, but I believe you're dope, and I'll hold that belief until you do, and I'll give you evidence and examples of that until you believe it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm gonna step off my soapbox, but thank you.
But honestly, I can see why a lot of males, just speaking to what Dr. April was saying and what you just laid out, why it seems like a lot of young men in this age range that we're talking about, in the preteens, they're huffy, they're upset, they're angry, and it's usually because they're trying to figure out who they are. There's this parent who does not know how to communicate with them appropriately, and so as children, they cry and they throw tantrums. As a preteen, oh my gosh, I know how to speak words, but I don't know what those words are. And so now that hurt of not really knowing who they are and not being able to connect with who they want to connect with, it shows up as anger and frustration. And then, of course, as a parent, we react with we mirror it. We hold the mirror up and we give it right back. When in reality, we need to be the adults and step back and say, okay, where is this coming from? Because I don't think we as adults ask that enough. I truly believe people don't just act out of nowhere. It's usually a reaction to something. And if me, the parent, is the only thing in the room, let's see where it came from.
Well, I'm not going to blame all the parents, but yeah. No. No shaming, no blaming, no complaining. But you're right, Coach K. You're absolutely right. If we get curious to ask, what need is this person trying to meet? Mm-hmm. All behavior comes from trying to meet a need. And oftentimes, when there's an expression of something, the H is hold space for collaborative thinking and critical thinking. When people act out a certain way, they think, what's wrong with me? Again, coming back to addicts, anybody who might have experience with that. But As the adult in the room, as the one setting the tone, the facilitator, say nothing's wrong with you. There's a problem that we're going to face together.
Right.
I want to hear you, so I'm going to actively listen. I'm going to give you my understanding, and let's come up with a solution together that we're going to try out for a time. And if that solution doesn't work, let's visit it again. But know that you have my support. It's called autonomy supportive parenting.
Mhm.
I'm going to let you express yourself, and I'm going to support you in that as it's aligned with our virtues and values. And that's what it is, supporting the person as they're working their way through stuff.
Mhm. And one of the things, sometimes parents are so flooded, like you get so upset that you can't provide that supportive space.
Yeah.
And I try to remind parents, especially with teenagers or preteens, they're old enough that you don't have to make a comment right then. It's okay to put yourself in a timeout. I would, yeah. And I would actually have my child journal out what she wanted to say. We both go in journal. So it gave me time to calm my little self down, gave her time to calm herself down so we can come back and really have a full discussion about what, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you don't have to react right away.
The metaphor I use is a snow globe.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't connect if the snow globe is shaking. So
Right.
just let it settle, and let's come back to this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now with so much social media,
Mhm.
how do you suggest the parents who are trying to balance out what is too much? What do I give access to? Am I supposed to be looking at all of their social media all the time? I mean, how does that?
Sure. The unique thing about this generation, there's a book called The Anxious Generation,
Mm-hmm.
speaks about how in 2012 we saw an uptick in the mental
Mm-hmm.
health challenges. So again, remember I said we are the stories we tell ourselves. When you
Right.
imagine that there was a generation that grew up with their identity being formed behind a screen.
Right.
So of course, when they're switching over into independence, they're looking for new viewpoints. They're looking for new perspectives. Ideally, they're surrounded by friends, coaches, mentors, other trustworthy adults inside the community. And some of those values may not be yours, but this is what human development is.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, a lot of people they had unfettered access to social media,
Right.
where stories are going by, stories are going by, stories are going by. When the screen closes, the question is, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where's the intimacy with myself, if you will,
Right.
in this context? Because if you don't know who you are, you can't push back against the stresses of life,
Right.
which will inevitably come. This is how we grow. We grow through stress. To your question, Dr. April, you were asking, you're
Yeah.
saying, how do we deal with social media?
Yes. Yes. Because
Yeah.
in some states here in the U.S., they're banning it for teenagers. You know.
Until 16, until
Yeah,
middle
or
school, the end of middle
yeah.
school. I respect the wisdom of the household.
Mm-hmm.
From my studies and what I see, yeah, not until 16 will we access this social media, I'll say. But the internet is a tool, and I actually have a workshop on my website talking about digital media planning with your kid. That it's a tool that we need to express ourselves. Is it that we can't deny? But then let's have healthy rules about it, and let's bring them in as stakeholders, if you will, to have that conversation with them. Again, autonomy, supportive parenting, it's saying, I trust you. What are you going to do with this trust? It will be broken. Sometimes, maybe we'll try to work towards it. We repair it. But we're coming in to this conversation, both understanding what we want. How do you have those conversations at a younger age? There are ways to do it. It's age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think, maybe I didn't give you a tactic to say
You did.
specifically.
You did.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things you said was digital media planning, and that in my mind was thinking of, people just give a phone or, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and have, TikTok or whatever, but there's no plan.
I would even say be a bit more proactive. because we know what makes you healthy is eye-to-eye contact and physical touch. That's how oxytocin is released.
Right.
So if you are part of a community of faith, make sure that you're meeting other people, or if you have like a CrossFit gym, or if you meet other people, go to the park, like have relationships off of the screens, because we know that that's where kids have healthy relationships. If you can, and we weren't meant to parent alone. It's called allo parenting. We're supposed to have pods. We're supposed to have support.
Right.
If you can find it, it's easier said than done, I know, but look for support. Like life supports those who support life, and you'll find it. You'll find it.
Absolutely. And if the village is not in your immediate vicinity, then check your friends. What kind of friends do you have if you're hanging with a whole gang of folks and you feel like you have no village when it comes to raising your child? Because birds of a feather flock together. And so if you're a part of that flock, then what are you doing with this child and parenting?
Yeah.
Right.
They say
once go on.
I was gonna say what Chuck D said. He said, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you.
Right. Right. And one set of friends that you can have as a parent is become friends of your kids' parents, your kids' friends' parents. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I was always doing, is trying to be friends with her friends' parents, because that's how you get to know what's going on. You know.
And what you just described, April, is community.
Yeah.
That's why other people matter.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so as I also think about this, and one of the things I was thinking about, even how are each of you as a preteen? When you look back and you think about that, the 12, 13-year-old preteen.
You want me to go first? You want to go first?
Yes,
You go first. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you the guest, please. You know what? All right. So I'm a third culture kid, they call it. So my mother from the Philippines, dad from the Bahamas, and I grew up in America. Like my passport doesn't match. Whatever. I'm comfortable being alone. Not alone, but I'm comfortable being me. Every space I entered was, oh yeah, you're different. And I didn't see it as off-putting, but I would connect with people. I get in where I fit in, right? With the Filipino crews, with the Bahamian crews, with the American crews. I was a wholesome kid, yeah. I was not judgmental, but I was curious. And I think that's why I'm an advocate for teenage voices. When you enter spaces and people assume stuff about you, and it's like, no, that's not me. I could pop off at the mouth just because in my family, when I grew up with my dad, I think this is why I'm such a critical thinker. So I've learned to be more finessed it more. But yeah, I could hold an argument, but now I make space for people, and I'm like, I don't need to be right, or I'm curious about your point of view. So that's how I was. Coach,
I was like a glass of water. Wherever you poured me, I just molded to it, and I know that as a preteen, I was curious. I needed to understand why. I did not ask a lot of questions. We moved a lot, and so I just observed. That was my biggest thing, is to absorb. I was a true to life Gemini as a child, and it was take it all in, use it when you need to. And I think I stayed in just survival mode, honestly. I was in the era of latchkey kids. That's,
yeah.
It was a single mom. So I just had me and my sister, she was older. Who wants to hang out with the little kid? So I made my friends. I stayed with that group of friends until I no longer needed to be around that group of friends, because I too am okay. Like, I love me. I could hang out with me all day long, and I was good. So, and I did kid stuff. Like, even as a preteen, while everybody was trying to go skating, I'm taking my shoes off while they was constructing our road, and I'm playing in the mud with my feet because that's what's cool to me. So that's why I always say I'm so glad social media wasn't there, because I was able to explore.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I noticed that we both mentioned curiosity, and it's worth noting at this stage we are in observation mode for the most part. I mean, different personalities, different temperaments for people, and the reason I bring that up is because sometimes when your kid is quiet and just observing, they're trying to assess a situation. That's when we start projecting onto them, and it's like, oh, just give that space to actually ask and talk with them, because you never know what a person's thinking until you speak with them, one. And two, oftentimes we already have a story for what they're thinking before we've even talked to them. It's like, no. You be curious about them also.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you said that, and I think that's a good tool for parents to use is curiosity. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, in life, and even working with your kid. I just remember times when I would just watch the shows she watched, and I would be curious, and I would just ask her, "Well, what would you do differently, or what would you do?" We would always have this "what if." We were all, yes, all these scenarios, which she used to get sick of.
I just came off of a podcast, and they were just asking about entertainment. Like, what do you think about entertainment? And I said, you have to understand, books used to be entertainment, the radio used to be entertainment, and everything. And they said it has the word "tain" in it, which means to hold, contain, retain, attain. You're actually giving your time and attention to something. And I said, that's not necessarily bad. What's bad is when you start to do it in isolation, or you start to find yourself doing it alone. And yeah, read a book, but then afterwards have conversation with people about the human experience of, oh, what happened, or what do you think? Because you get to know yourself, again, back to the topic of intimacy, and you get to know this other person's perspective. So nothing's necessarily wrong with entertainment, but make it a community effort. Yeah, like you did with your daughter. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a wonderful conversation. How can people find you if they're looking at and they wanted to connect with you? And if you have any final thoughts on this topic?
Sure. MarcusHiggs.com is the best place to find me. I'm rolling out the workshops this week. They should be up there by this weekend. Other than that, it would be on LinkedIn. I'm not so much on other social media. You'll find me, but I'm not posting there. But I'm on LinkedIn primarily, but MarcusHiggs.com if you want to contact me.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, it's been amazing. Yes, yes. And it's something that is definitely needed. So if parents are out there and you're struggling with your kids, definitely check him out at www.marcushiggs.com. Yes. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. April. Thank you, Coach K.
All right. Well, we'll take a break and we'll be back in a moment.
In a world where stress and anxiety seem to be constant companions, finding a safe space is essential. Welcome to Therapists in Sarasota, where we hear you and we care about you. Take the first step towards healing and transformation. Contact us today to schedule your appointment. Your mental wellness matters.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Wow, that was very powerful.
Very much so. And, for all that are watching now and, the ones that are going to catch the replay, I truly hope that as parents, they take that moment to just sit back, really absorb and look in the mirror because it's absolutely necessary that we don't forget that we were children. We were preteens. We came from a place and we learned. Thus, we have to give that space for it to happen to the next generation and the next generation, with the guardrails up like they do in bowling,
Yeah, and something we totally forgot to mention, I was just thinking, is that your teen is not going to be the exact you.
I don't want none of my teens to be.
So, like you said, we have to watch. We have to hold, as he was talking about, hold space to be curious. Yeah.
Yes. And because I love the curiosity. To this day, I'm still curious. I'll probably ask my kids more questions than they have the opportunity to ask me because I want to know. I know the struggles that I had. So I want to ask questions that also opens their mind up to, okay, I never thought of that, but let me see. And I don't expect an answer always right then and there.
Right, definitely, yes. But it's in questions that we gain understanding and knowledge. Yes.
Exactly. And it also can put our mind at ease if we don't assume and we just ask a question.
Yes, definitely. So what's coming up?
We have some great shows coming up. So on July the 18th, we have Reviving Intimacy, a Spiritual Journey with Corwin C.J. Moneyway Johnson. On July 25th, we have Your Life, Your Rules with Melissa Crook. On August the 1st, I'm really excited about this one. We have Overcoming Erectile Dysfunction with men's sexual health coach, Ken Schaefer. And then on August the 8th, we have a look back at the number one reason men and women fail in love with Andre Paradis.
Awesome. Yes. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful show. And please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Yes. And we thank again Marcus for his outstanding knowledge of letting us know how we can help and interact with our preteens. Definitely follow him, and I think he's actually he said he was on LinkedIn, so check him out. And we will see you guys next week. All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.